Welcome back to the Joyride. This one's gonna be a little different than usual because I actually tested 2 boards at once. I recently had basically the opportunity of a lifetime to go spend a few weeks on Kandui Resort in Indonesia, the Mentawai Islands. And part of my work trip, surf trip, whatever you want to call it, was actually testing a 2-board quiver from 4 different brands. So I got a short board and a step up. I tested boards from Pyzel, Channel Islands, Sharp Eye, and I was supposed to test Lost, but I accidentally got hurt before I could test those boards, so I didn't get to them. Anyway, we did a test for those 3 sets, and I tried to pick my favorite 2-board quiver. I put them to work in a lot of different waves, some rights, some lefts, some hollow waves, some rippable waves, and in the end, I came up with these 2 boards, the Pyzel. So on my left here, we have the Radius. It's kind of their most high-performance short board, and on the right, I have a board that all of you probably know well, and I've been dying to test on the Joyride, a Ghost, made famous, of course, by John Florence. So, the Radius. I have to admit, when I first saw this board, I was a little bit nervous because I haven't ridden a board with this pulled in of a nose in a really long time. It really looked to me like kind of like a board that I'd get in the early 2000s. You know, a little bit more narrow, a little bit more fine-tuned, and something that kind of the general surfing populace has moved away from in recent years. But I was absolutely blown away by how well it performed. And granted, that has a lot to do with how good the waves are over there. It kind of instantly just matched any wave that I was surfing with like just the right amount of kind of grip and power. What I mean by that is I could basically put the board anywhere that I wanted, turn it really hard in the pocket, also go out of the lip. Anything that I wanted to do, this board was there for me. One of my first sessions out there was actually at this right that was kind of like a flatter face with some power to it, and I was amazed by how well it kind of carved. I went through the lip. I think I even did a little air on it maybe. And then we brought it over to a left that was a little bit more cuppy and steep, and it was just so strong off the bottom and would kind of explode and pop out of the lip. And I just felt like I had complete control over it, which is all you can really ask for in a high-performance shortboard. You want to feel like you can take the most critical line possible and trust that your board is going to go there, and this board did it pretty much every single time. The one thing that I wanted to get to with this board was riding a hollow wave, and that day kind of just magically appeared. So I jumped off the boat as fast as I could, scrambled out there, and basically paddled into the best session that I think I've ever had in my life. It was 8 straight hours of tube after tube after tube after tube. And at times I was thinking like, man, I wish I had a step up out here, but you know, it got into waves, and once I got locked into the barrel, it was so maneuverable and quick and nimble that I felt like I could do anything. And that unfortunately led to my demise. I guess I got a little bit too confident, and at one point I tried to pull out of a wave, mistimed it. The lip landed on my leg, buckled my knee, and that was the rest of my trip. I was out. So I went out on a high note. I didn't surf for 2 months after, but I honestly didn't care because that day was so special, and it was all on this board. If I have to be critical of this board, of course, because it's so good in waves that are high quality, it's not going to perform well in small dribbly waves. I would never paddle out on this board in surf that wasn't good to epic. So boards basically can't be all things to all waves, and this is definitely not for crappy waves. Now, the Ghost. You saw John surf this board at Margaret River, Haleiwa, and basically at all the larger wave venues that he goes to. And yeah, it's basically designed to rip the crap out of really tall, big, scary waves. And while I didn't really do that, I had a lot of fun on it in slightly overhead to a little bit over slightly overhead surf in the Mentawai Islands. It was basically my favorite step up of the bunch that I got to try. So this board has a ton of foam up in the front, which obviously helps with paddling, and it also helps with carving in the face because it brings the tail in nice and small to the end, so you get a lot of control through big carves. So I actually got to bring this board out for a couple waves at a wave out front of Kandui Resort called Four Bobs. It's just a short right-hander, but the first two sections are really nice and steep, and it allows you to work on your carves. So I tried a couple turns on it and it felt great. And the next day we got to go surf another right-hander that's a little bit more solid and scary, frankly. And we got to find a few tubes, which was really, really fun. Paddled amazing, and it basically gave me the confidence to like take off on waves that for me are pretty scary. You know, it's sizable, breaking over a really shallow reef, and I definitely paid the price a few times, but I also made a few waves that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have. So yeah, that's the Ghost. So one of the most interesting and biggest takeaways that I've had of surfing step-ups in the past couple years is that you actually want to ride a slightly smaller fin in a step-up than you would in your standard board. So I ride medium fins typically, so when I get on the Ghost, I actually throw in a small fin. The only thing is you have to make sure it's really stiff. So I rode small Futures fins in this, the EA template, the entire time, and I wouldn't change them for anything. And the reason for that is because you don't need as much fin because you have more rail line holding in the wave. So this board for me feels a lot better with a smaller fin. It allows me to kind of lay into a bigger carve and not get stuck and not feel like the fins and the rail are fighting against one another. So does the Ghost live up to the hype? I would say yes. For me, this is as good of a step up as they come. It kind of checks all the boxes. It has hold, but it's still a little bit performance oriented, and it paddles really well. That's basically the three things you need in a good step up board.